Question number 101. A multinational project has teams spread across 4 countries with drastically different time zones and cultural norms. Despite a solid communications plan, confusion continues around deliverable expectations, and repeated clarifications are required. Team members often misinterpret messages, even though they were delivered on time and through agreed-upon channels. What should the project manager do? The issue here isn't the delivery of communication, it's the interpretation and understanding of it. PMI emphasizes that effective communication is not just about sending messages on time, but ensuring they are clearly received, understood, and actionable. A communication requirements analysis helps the project manager identify the real needs of stakeholders, including how much detail, what level of formality, and what communication styles work best across different cultures and time zones. Options A and B may help later, but jumping to more meetings or generalized cultural workshops won't solve the root cause if comprehension needs aren't first analyzed. Option D shifts responsibility without fixing the systemic issue. Question number 102. A risk with moderate probability and low impact is identified. The project manager decides to monitor it, but no active mitigation is applied. Later, the risk becomes a minor issue, delaying the project by 2 weeks. What should the project manager do next? The project manager initially chose to monitor a moderate probability, low-impact risk, which is appropriate under PMI guidelines when risks are not critical. However, now that the risk has materialized into a minor issue causing schedule delay, it signals a need to reassess its impact and possibly upgrade its response strategy. Option C reflects good risk management. Adapt and act based on updated information. Simply accepting the delay shows passivity. Escalating to the sponsor is unnecessary for a minor issue, and performing quantitative analysis is more suitable for high-impact, high-complexity risks, not this case. Question number 103. A project involves deploying a custom-built solution across 5 regions, each with slightly different legal requirements. The work will be performed by external vendors. The PMO wants tight control over scope and cost, but regional stakeholders insist on flexibility in adapting deliverables per location. The project must minimize risk exposure to the organization while ensuring legal compliance in all regions. Which contract type best aligns with these needs? Here, the correct answer is Option B, time and material with a not-to-exceed limit. This project requires a balance between control and flexibility. A time and material contract allows the vendor to adapt to localized needs and changes in deliverables, ideal for variable, custom work. However, to limit financial risk and control costs, setting a not-to-exceed limit ensures that spending does not go beyond a defined cap without approval. Option A, fixed price with incentives, is too rigid, not ideal for evolving regional requirements. Option C, CPIF, is more suitable for R&D or high uncertainty projects where the buyer assumes more risk. And Option D, fixed price with economic price adjustment, is good for long-term inflation-related contracts, not for scope flexibility or legal adaptability. Question number 104. During the planning phase, a project manager identifies a significant risk that has a low probability but a high potential impact. The risk is categorized as a threat. The project manager decides to transfer the risk, but the project sponsor, after reviewing the risk management plan, suggests that the risk be avoided instead. Given the situation, what should the project manager do next? In this situation, the best response is Option B. The project manager should reassess the risk considering the sponsor's input and evaluate whether avoidance is a better strategy, weighing trade-offs against the project's objectives. This approach aligns with PMI's emphasis on stakeholder collaboration and adaptive risk management. Option A, which suggests immediately implementing the transfer strategy, ignores new input from a key stakeholder and could create alignment issues. Option C, revising the risk plan and executing avoidance without reassessment, risks introducing unnecessary constraints or costs without sufficient analysis. Option D, Dismissing the sponsor's suggestion and sticking to the original plan reflects poor stakeholder engagement and undermines collaborative decision-making. Question number 105. In the middle of a project, the project manager receives a report indicating that the actual costs for the project are exceeding the planned value. The project manager uses earned value management to assess the situation, and the cost performance index is calculated to be 0.85. The team has been making progress, but the project is at risk of going over budget. The project manager needs to determine the next step. What should the project manager do next? The CPI of 0.85 indicates cost inefficiency, meaning the project is getting only 85 cents of value for every dollar spent. This is a red flag that the project may exceed its budget if trends continue. The most appropriate next step is to calculate the estimate at completion using the current CPI, which provides a realistic projection of the total expected cost if current performance persists. This allows the project manager to assess budget risks early and plan corrective actions. Simply monitoring the situation or focusing only on schedule ignores the cost issue, while revising the cost baseline immediately without analysis is premature and undermines control processes. Question number 106. A project manager is reviewing two paths in the schedule network. Path A. Duration equals 18 days. Path B. Duration equals 20 days. The project's required duration is 20 days. Task X is on Path A and can be delayed by up to 2 days without affecting the project completion date. Later, Task X is delayed by 1 day, and a stakeholder suggests reassigning a resource from Path A to help recover delays on Path B. What should the project manager do first? Task X on Path A already experienced a 1-day delay, consuming half of its 2-day float. Reassigning resources from Path A to Path B might help with Path B, the critical path, but could also risk pushing Path A's duration beyond its float, possibly creating a new critical path or concurrent delays. PMI best practices suggest that before making resource adjustments, the project manager should first analyze the full impact on the schedule using tools like resource leveling. This ensures that resource changes do not unintentionally affect the project's overall timeline or introduce new risks. The other options either assume action without analysis, overgeneralize risk, or unnecessarily escalate when the PM has tools to evaluate the situation first. Question number 107. A project is tracking behind schedule, and the team proposes crashing several activities using overtime and additional contractors. However, two functional managers express concern about resource burnout and budget limits. Meanwhile, a key client representative has requested that the delivery date remain unchanged to align with a product launch. The sponsor asks for an updated forecast by end of day. No formal change request has been raised yet. What should the project manager do first? Before taking action on crashing the schedule, the project manager must first analyze the impact of doing so. This includes evaluating the cost, resource availability, risk of burnout, and potential schedule gains. PMI recommends making data-driven decisions, especially when trade-offs involve scope, time, and cost constraints. So, option A is the correct choice. Crashing is a schedule compression technique that often involves additional costs or stress on resources, so it's critical to assess feasibility before submitting a change request as in option B, or committing to new timelines as suggested in option D. While meeting with the sponsor and client option C may follow, it should be based on concrete analysis, not assumptions. Question number 108. You're leading a project that's on track. During a stakeholder meeting, a senior executive expresses dissatisfaction with the current communication flow and asks for direct daily updates from the team leads. Which of the following actions would be inappropriate? In this scenario, option C is inappropriate because instructing team leads to send daily updates immediately, just to appease a senior executive, bypasses the formal communication process and risks disrupting team productivity. PMI emphasizes evaluating the impact of such requests before making changes. Option A is appropriate as it follows proper change control by reviewing and updating the communications management plan, ensuring alignment with stakeholder needs. Option B is also suitable, as it involves discussing the change with team leads to gain buy-in and assess feasibility, promoting collaboration. Option D reflects good project management by considering how the request could affect team performance and overall project efficiency before deciding. Question number 109. Your Agile team's velocity has improved steadily over the past 4 sprints. Management now wants to use velocity as a metric to compare teams and push for more output per sprint. What is the most appropriate response as the Agile project manager? Velocity reflects how much work a specific Agile team can complete during a sprint, based on their unique composition, experience, tools, and working style. It is not a performance comparison metric between teams. Comparing velocity across teams can lead to unhealthy competition, estimation inflation, and undermines trust. So, the correct response should be Option B. Explain that velocity is unique to each team and should only be used for forecasting within the same team. Complying or padding estimates introduces dysfunction, while rejecting velocity entirely ignores its valid forecasting use within the team context. Question number 110. During the sprint review, a product backlog item meets the definition of done and passes all technical checks, but the stakeholder rejects it because it doesn't align with their expectations outlined in the acceptance criteria. What should the Scrum team do next? Even if a product backlog item meets the definition of done and technical criteria, if it fails to meet the stakeholder's acceptance criteria, it cannot be considered truly complete in Agile. The Scrum team should respect this feedback and move the item back to the backlog, refine it based on the stakeholders' clarified expectations, and address it in a future sprint. Hence, Option B is the correct next step. Option A suggests marking the item as done. This ignores valuable stakeholder input and undermines product value. A formal change request in Option C is not part of the Scrum process. Escalating to the sponsor, as mentioned in Option D, is unnecessary and premature when backlog refinement can solve the issue collaboratively. Question number 111. You're leading a large infrastructure project. During the collect requirements phase, 2 key stakeholders provide conflicting requirements for the same functionality. One demands performance, the other insists on cost reduction. You've documented both but can't satisfy both without violating constraints. What is the best next step? During the collect requirements phase, the project manager should act as a facilitator, helping stakeholders align on expectations before scope is finalized. When 2 key stakeholders provide conflicting requirements, one prioritizing performance and the other cost, the PM's best approach is to bring them together in a working session to discuss trade-offs and find a balanced, mutually agreeable solution. Option A, submitting to change authority, is premature as no scope has been baselined yet. Option C delays conflict resolution and may cause issues later. Option D escalates too early, which goes against PMI's principle of resolving issues at the lowest possible level first. Question number 112. You're halfway through a large system integration project. During testing, a key stakeholder insists that a previously undocumented feature must be included, claiming it was verbally agreed during early discussions. You consult the requirements traceability matrix and find no trace of the feature. What should you do next? When a stakeholder claims a requirement was verbally agreed upon but it's missing from the requirements traceability matrix, the project manager should not jump to rejecting or accepting the request immediately. Instead, the next logical step is to review the original documentation to ensure nothing was missed and reassess the stakeholder engagement strategy to understand how this communication gap occurred. This helps verify whether the oversight was due to poor documentation, weak stakeholder involvement, or an actual misunderstanding. Option A is too rigid and could damage relationships. Option B assumes the request is valid without verification. Option C incorrectly suggests retroactively modifying requirements traceability matrix based on verbal input alone. Question number 113. During execution, a team member raises concerns about unclear quality expectations. You check the quality management plan, but everything seems compliant. However, you realize the issue stems from inconsistent understanding of customer-defined quality criteria across teams. As the project manager, which project document should you consult or update to resolve the misunderstanding? In this scenario, the issue isn't with the overall quality management plan, but with the interpretation of customer-defined quality expectations. The document that defines how quality will be measured and what acceptable performance looks like is the quality metrics. These metrics set the specific thresholds or conditions that must be met for the deliverables to be considered acceptable. Question number 114. A project to automate customer onboarding is nearing completion. While all deliverables are being met and the product passes acceptance testing, the customer success team notes that the time to onboard is only marginally faster and customer satisfaction scores remain unchanged. The sponsor is concerned about achieving the expected business benefits. As the project manager, what should you do first? Even though the project has delivered all agreed scope and passed acceptance testing, business benefits like reduced onboarding time and improved satisfaction haven't been achieved. PMI emphasizes that a project's success is not just about delivering scope, but also about achieving the intended business value. Option B is correct because the first step is to analyze whether the expected benefits are being realized. This includes comparing actual results against what was defined in the business case or benefits management plan. Option A. Escalation may be needed later, but not before you understand the data. Option C is premature. Formal closure should not happen until you confirm that the business outcomes have been evaluated. Option D. Request change control jumps to a solution without first understanding if the issue is due to execution, expectations, or external factors. So, the best first action is to assess the benefits realization metrics to understand the gap and determine the appropriate next steps. Question number 115. A project manager is developing the schedule for a product launch with a fixed deadline. Several tasks are dependent on the same set of specialized engineers. Two critical activities are currently scheduled in parallel, both requiring those engineers. After preliminary resource allocation, one of the tasks is now showing negative float. Management insists on hitting the original deadline without compromising scope. Budget flexibility is limited, and crashing options have minimal effect due to skill constraints. What should the project manager do next to bring the schedule under control? In this scenario, the project faces a resource conflict on critical tasks involving limited specialized engineers. One task has developed negative float, meaning it threatens the project deadline. Since crashing isn't effective due to skill constraints and budget is tight, the best move is to optimize the schedule. Option D is correct because resequencing tasks and analyzing dependencies can help reduce or eliminate negative float without requiring more resources or money, while still protecting scope and the fixed deadline. Option A, fast tracking, can introduce significant risk if the tasks truly require completion in sequence, especially for complex work involving shared engineers. Option B doesn't help the critical path directly. Extending non-critical tasks doesn't resolve the resource bottleneck. Option C, resource leveling, spreads work to resolve conflicts but may delay the project, which is unacceptable due to the fixed deadline. Question number 116. In an Agile project, the team has failed to meet 2 sprint goals in a row. They prefer to conduct retrospectives on their own, without outside involvement. The project manager notices that daily stand-ups lack genuine discussion. Previous retrospective actions are not being followed through, and team velocity is declining. Despite this, team members keep reporting that everything is fine and no blockers are raised. What should the project manager do next in alignment with servant leadership principles? In this scenario, the best course of action is to encourage the team to revisit their working agreements and assess whether internal processes need adjustment. This approach aligns with Agile values and servant leadership principles by promoting self-reflection, team ownership, and continuous improvement without imposing control. While it may be tempting to raise concerns during the next retrospective as an Option B or privately coached team members, Option C, these actions can undermine team autonomy and damage psychological safety. Similarly, doing nothing and hoping the team self-corrects as suggested in Option D ignores clear signs of dysfunction, such as missed sprint goals and declining velocity. Therefore, Option A strikes the right balance between support and empowerment, creating the environment for the team to identify and address root causes collaboratively. Question number 117. You're in the initiating phase of a complex infrastructure project. A senior executive demands a budget number within 24 hours to secure provisional board approval. There's limited scope detail, no formal WBS, and high uncertainty. You consult the historical database and produce a cost figure based on a similar project done 3 years ago, adjusting it for inflation and scale. You present the number to the executive as a rough estimate, but she wants it documented as the official baseline for all future cost performance. What should the project manager do next? In the initiating phase, using a rough order of magnitude estimate is appropriate, especially when detailed scope and WBS are not yet developed. However, these estimates typically have an accuracy range of -25% to +75% and should not be used as a final baseline. As the project manager, your responsibility is to ensure stakeholders understand the limitations of such estimates. By formally documenting the range and recommending against its use as a baseline, you demonstrate professionalism, manage expectations, and uphold proper cost management practices. Accepting it blindly as a baseline, as in Option A or D, undermines future planning accuracy. Escalating to the steering committee, as mentioned in Option B, is unnecessarily confrontational at this stage and may damage stakeholder trust. Question number 118. Your project team agreed during planning to escalate any critical blockers only after team-level resolution attempts fail. In Sprint 3, a team member bypasses this and directly complains to the sponsor about another teammate's delays. The sponsor emails you and asks why you didn't inform them earlier. What should you do first? The project manager's first responsibility is to maintain transparency while also reinforcing team governance. Since the sponsor is now involved, you must respond professionally, not by deflecting blame or immediately disciplining the team member, but by explaining the agreed-upon escalation protocol and assuring the sponsor that the issue is being handled appropriately. This preserves the team's self-management principles while also meeting stakeholder expectations. So, Option D is the appropriate response. Option B, though necessary, should come after you've addressed the sponsor. Option C is a proactive step for later process reflection, and A weakens your credibility by implying failure before context is established. Question number 119. A day before a major release, a critical defect is discovered in the system. The defect is serious enough that it could significantly affect user experience. Fixing it would delay the release by a week, but releasing with the bug might harm the project's success. The marketing team is eager to release on schedule for a product launch event tomorrow. What should you do? A critical defect just before release presents a serious risk to user experience and stakeholder trust. Although marketing pressures exist, PMI prioritizes delivering quality and meeting customer expectations over schedule adherence. Releasing with a known critical issue, options B or C, jeopardizes long-term project success and can lead to reputational damage. Option D, while well-intentioned, risks burnout and quality compromise due to rushed work under pressure. Therefore, the best course of action is to delay the release, fix the issue properly, and communicate the new plan to stakeholders. Question number 120. A moderate project risk has just occurred, causing some issues but not crippling the project. You have a contingency reserve allocated for this risk and a fallback plan if things worsen. The team suggests using the fallback plan immediately to eliminate any chance of further impact. What should you do? Since the risk was anticipated and a contingency reserve was allocated, the project manager should first use those contingency resources to manage the current moderate impact, which is the planned response. The fallback plan is a secondary response meant for escalated or failed contingencies, not for moderate situations. Here, the correct response is option B, jumping to fallback plan prematurely, as in option A, may waste resources and reduce flexibility later. Ignoring the issue as in option C contradicts risk response planning, and while reevaluation as suggested in option D sounds good, the correct action was already pre-planned. Use the contingency reserve. Question number 121. During project execution, a team member suggests removing certain standard compliance tests to meet the schedule, knowing that skipping them violates industry regulations. This could save time but introduces legal risks. The team member believes the risk of audit failure is very low. What should you do? Even under schedule pressure, industry regulations and compliance requirements must never be compromised. Skipping required compliance tests, even if the audit risk seems low, exposes the organization to legal, reputational, and financial risks. As the project manager, it's your duty to uphold ethical standards and regulatory obligations. The best response is option B. While reporting the issue or seeking guidance, as in options C and D, may be appropriate if there's ongoing non-compliance, the immediate and primary responsibility is to reject the suggestion and reinforce the importance of compliance. PMI emphasizes integrity and adherence to professional and legal standards over meeting deadlines. Question number 122. A team member confesses they falsified progress reports to hide a 2-week delay. The PM discovers the delay jeopardizes a regulatory milestone, risking a $500,000 penalty. What should be the project manager's response? The project manager must immediately act with integrity and transparency. Falsifying progress reports is an ethical violation that cannot be ignored. The delay is now a serious issue with regulatory and financial implications, so the PM must document it in the issue log, report the misconduct to HR per company policy, and initiate a change request to formally manage the impact on scope, schedule, and cost. The other options either ignore the ethical breach or delay appropriate stakeholder communication, which is unacceptable in this scenario. Question number 123. A critical vendor declares force majeure due to a hurricane. The contract lacks penalties, and alternate suppliers demand a 50% cost premium. The project is 70% complete. What should the project manager do next? In this scenario, a critical vendor has invoked force majeure due to a hurricane, and there are no penalties in the contract. Alternate vendors are available, but at a 50% cost premium, and the project is already 70% complete. Since there is no mention of a predefined fallback plan, the best course of action is to issue a formal change request to update the cost baseline and seek sponsor approval for additional funds as mentioned in option B. This aligns with PMP best practices, where any significant impact to project constraints, especially cost, requires formal evaluation and stakeholder involvement through integrated change control. Options like initiating disputes are inappropriate given the force majeure clause. Reallocating resources may help marginally, but doesn't address the vendor shortfall. Therefore, updating the cost baseline through a change request is the most appropriate and proactive next step. Question number 124. You're in the middle of controlling the project work. A major client unexpectedly requests a high-level status presentation within 2 hours. You have access to the latest work performance data, actual hours, defects, milestones completed, a real-time dashboard showing work, performance information, a formal report from last week, Work Performance Report. To quickly and accurately explain current project performance trends with minimal preparation time, what should you rely on? When you're in the controlling project work process and need to present a high-level performance status quickly, the best source is Work Performance Information. It contains processed and contextualized data, like earned value, trend lines, and progress indicators, that give meaning to raw data, helping you explain current performance and trends. While work performance data offers raw facts, like hours worked or defects, it lacks interpretation, making it time-consuming to summarize. Work performance reports are useful but may be outdated, especially if they're from last week and you're now facing a real-time request. Option D, the issue log and quality metrics, supports detailed analysis but won't provide a clear, summarized view of overall project health. Question number 125. During the execution phase of your project, a key stakeholder submits a change request that significantly alters the product scope. The change will affect multiple work packages and delay critical path activities. The stakeholder insists the change is urgent and expects immediate implementation. As the project manager, which two actions should you take? When a significant change request is submitted during project execution, especially one that affects scope and delays critical path activities, the project manager must follow formal change control processes. The first step is to evaluate the impact as an option B on time, cost, quality, and other constraints to fully understand how the change will affect the project. Only with that analysis can you make an informed recommendation. Then, the next step is to submit the request to the Change Control Board as in Option D, which is responsible for approving or rejecting such changes. This aligns with PMI's emphasis on perform integrated change control. Option A, escalating to the sponsor, may be necessary later depending on governance, but it's not the immediate best action without following the defined process. Option C, updating baselines, is only done after the change has been approved, not before. Thus, B and D are the two appropriate first actions. Question number 126. An Agile team is preparing to onboard an external vendor to support an upcoming release. The product backlog is evolving, and not all features are clearly defined yet. The sponsor wants to cap cost exposure by using a fixed-price contract. The vendor is experienced with iterative development, but is concerned about unclear scope. The procurement department asks the project manager to finalize contract terms. What is the most appropriate next step for the project manager? In Agile environments where the scope is still evolving, locking into a traditional fixed-price contract can lead to disputes and misaligned expectations. However, the sponsor wants cost predictability, and the vendor is familiar with iterative delivery but cautious about unclear requirements. The most appropriate action is to work with the vendor to define high-level themes and agree on a fixed price per sprint. This hybrid approach offers cost control through sprint-based pricing while allowing for flexibility within each sprint. Including early exit clauses also protects both parties if priorities shift. Option A sounds good, but requires a level of feature clarity that doesn't yet exist. Option C may align with Agile principles, but it contradicts the sponsor's need for a capped budget. Option D unnecessarily delays vendor onboarding and doesn't address the immediate need for contract finalization. Therefore, Option B is the best balanced and pragmatic next step. Question number 127. During execution, your project sponsor is concerned that a high-priority deliverable may not meet customer expectations. You're in the middle of integrating work performance data from multiple teams. The customer has also requested some changes. What should you do first? In this scenario, you're mid-execution and already integrating data across teams, while concerns have been raised about deliverable quality and change requests are coming in. Before reacting or implementing changes, the most appropriate first step is to apply the monitor and control project work process, Option C. This allows the project manager to evaluate current performance, identify any quality shortfalls, and understand how well the deliverable aligns with the plan. It's a diagnostic step that ensures decisions are based on facts. Option A, impact analysis, is appropriate but comes after you assess whether the concern is valid. Option B jumps to escalation without analysis, and Option D suggests taking action before confirming whether rework is necessary, which could waste time and resources. Therefore, Option C is the best first move to maintain control and make informed decisions. Question number 128. You are managing a large-scale Agile initiative involving two external vendors contributing components that must integrate at the end of every 3-sprint cycle. Vendor A is on a time and materials contract and has participated in previous sprints with predictable velocity. Vendor B is new and demands a fixed-price agreement, but won't commit to sprint velocity until its team is embedded. The product owner wants synchronized delivery across vendors. Procurement insists all contracts be finalized before sprint planning begins. What should the project manager do first to enable alignment and minimize delivery risk? The situation involves managing integration between two vendors in an agile environment, where vendor A is predictable but vendor B is new, prefers fixed pricing, and isn't ready to commit to a velocity. The priority is to align deliverables while minimizing risk and enabling timely planning. Option B offers the most practical and PMI-aligned solution, a hybrid contract that balances procurement's need for a fixed-price structure with Agile's need for flexibility. It provides cost control through fixed price per increment, but also includes mutual exit clauses and supports scope evolution. Option A ignores vendor B's contractual preference. Option C delays progress unnecessarily. And Option D fragments the delivery model, increasing risk of integration failure. Question number 129. During system validation preparations, the project team identifies a discrepancy. The requirements documentation indicates that the feature must be accessible via both mobile and desktop platforms, while the scope statement explicitly defines the deliverable as desktop only. Additionally, the assumption log states that users are expected to access the system via desktop only, based on corporate policy. Although the developer has already implemented and successfully tested mobile compatibility, an addition the client appears pleased with, it was not formally requested. What should the project manager do first? The most appropriate initial step is to review the project charter and validate the authoritative source for scope. Option D. In project management, especially under PMI guidelines, any discrepancy between documents must be resolved by referring to the formally approved scope baseline and project charter. These define what was contractually agreed upon and serve as the definitive source of truth. Accepting the mobile feature without validating whether it aligns with approved scope risks, introducing unauthorized scope creep. Raising a change request, Option B, or updating assumptions, Option C, may eventually be appropriate, but doing so before confirming the correct scope baseline is premature. The project manager must act based on documented authority, not assumptions or informal feedback. Question number 130. You are in the execution phase of a complex project. A previously identified risk has occurred, and the team has already implemented the pre-planned risk response. However, the impact is worse than expected. What should you do next? When a risk occurs and the initially planned risk response is insufficient, the next appropriate step is to implement the fallback plan, a backup strategy created during risk planning for exactly such scenarios. This action ensures the project remains under control despite the escalated impact. After triggering the fallback plan, the project manager should update the risk register to document what occurred, how the response was managed, and what corrective measures were taken. While root cause analysis, Option B, may be useful later, the immediate priority is executing the predefined backup strategy. Similarly, initiating new risk analysis, Options C and D, is premature until the current risk event is stabilized through the fallback approach. Question number 131. In an Agile project, the team repeatedly raises concerns during retrospectives about misaligned priorities and poor communication with the product owner. The product owner, however, believes the team is not adhering to backlog priorities. With deliverables at risk, what should the project manager do to address the issue effectively? Option B is the best choice because it promotes collaboration and transparency, key principles in Agile. A joint workshop creates a shared understanding, surfaces misalignments in real time, and helps reset expectations between the product owner and the team. Option A only addresses part of the issue privately, which might not resolve team-wide misalignment. Option C delays action by pushing responsibility solely to the Scrum Master and assumes retrospectives will fix deep-rooted communication gaps. Option D undermines Agile self-organization by imposing decisions instead of enabling shared ownership. Question number 132. Midway through a 9-month Agile project, a fixed-price vendor has delivered 5 out of 10 contracted features. Due to market changes, the product owner now wants to pivot, removing 3 upcoming features and replacing them with new priorities. The contract specifies feature-level deliverables, not time-based iterations. The vendor resists, stating that the new features weren't part of the original agreement and require rework. The sponsor insists on not paying twice for changed features and wants continued delivery under the existing contract. What should the project manager do first to handle this situation effectively and in alignment with PMI's Agile procurement principles? In Agile environments, especially when dealing with evolving priorities, PMI encourages Agile procurement practices that allow flexibility and value-driven delivery. Since the original fixed-price contract is structured around specific feature, continuing under the same contract will likely create friction. The best approach is to renegotiate the terms and create a contract addendum that redefines deliverables around business value rather than fixed scope. This ensures mutual alignment and keeps the vendor incentivized. Option B is rigid and escalatory. It enforces outdated scope and resists agility. Option C delays necessary collaboration and ignores the core misalignment between scope and contract terms. Option D attempts to satisfy both parties simultaneously, but increases complexity and confusion, leading to rework and inefficiency. PMI's Agile principle: contracts should accommodate change, support collaboration, and prioritize customer value. Question number 133. Midway through a project, a previously supportive stakeholder has started opposing key decisions in meetings. You've had several one-on-one discussions, but their stance remains unchanged. What should you do next? When a stakeholder's behavior shifts from supportive to resistant, the project manager must actively manage stakeholder engagement. Since one-on-one discussions haven't resolved the issue, the next appropriate step is to formally update the stakeholder engagement plan, noting the new engagement level. You should then adjust communication and influence strategies to re-engage the stakeholder effectively. Option B, escalate, is premature without trying to adjust your engagement approach first. Option C ignores the risk that stakeholders' opposition could derail project outcomes. Option D misuses the issue log and treats the stakeholders' resistance as a classification error, which it's not. Question number 134. Halfway through the release, a key stakeholder insists on introducing a high-value feature that wasn't part of the initial backlog. They argue it aligns with current market demand and want it prioritized immediately. The product owner is open to it but hasn't refined the item. The team is already struggling to complete committed sprint work, and no formal review or estimation has taken place. The PM is under pressure to show responsiveness without delaying delivery. What is the best course of action for the project manager? In Agile, new feature requests, even if high value, must follow the backlog refinement and prioritization process. Since the feature hasn't been refined or estimated, it's inappropriate to force it into the current sprint or immediately prioritize it. The best course of action is for the project manager to support the product owner in adding it to the refinement pipeline as in option C. This ensures it is properly evaluated, estimated, and prioritized without disrupting ongoing sprint commitments. Question number 135. A project to develop an internal data analytics platform has completed on time and within budget. All scope items were delivered, the product was accepted by the sponsor, and the final report was submitted. However, 2 months later, the expected improvement in decision-making speed has not materialized. Senior leadership is questioning the project's value. The benefits owner has not yet begun benefits tracking due to resource constraints. The sponsor asks the project manager to explain the situation. What should the project manager do next to ensure alignment with the benefits management framework? The best course of action is A, as organizing a post-implementation workshop allows stakeholders to collaboratively review assumptions, understand why the expected benefits haven't materialized, and update the benefits realization plan accordingly. This ensures alignment between delivery and value. Option B, while partially true that benefits tracking is often outside the project's scope, reflects a passive stance and undermines the project manager's role in enabling value. Option C suggests reopening the project, which is not ideal since benefits tracking typically falls under operational oversight, not project execution. Option D rightly emphasizes assigning a benefits owner, but doing so without facilitating a review or identifying gaps won't resolve the current misalignment. Question number 136. You are managing a $50 million urban development project currently behind schedule. A major supplier offers to expedite delivery of critical materials by 2 weeks, on the condition that one layer of quality assurance is bypassed. The supplier has an excellent track record and no history of defects. While the sponsor supports the idea to recover lost time, the quality manager strongly opposes it due to organizational policy. There is no documented risk related to this supplier in the risk register. A prompt decision is expected. What should the project manager do next? The best course of action is option C. This option aligns with the principles of collaborative decision-making and governance adherence. Even though the supplier is reputable and the sponsor supports the change, bypassing a layer of quality assurance is a policy-level concern that must be discussed with key stakeholders. Holding a meeting allows the project manager to assess the schedule benefit versus quality risk and determine whether a formal change request or exception process is warranted. Option A, accept the offer, is risky because it bypasses formal procedures and compromises quality without stakeholder agreement. Option B may eventually be required, but requesting an exception before fully discussing trade-offs with affected parties is premature. Option D, while principled, is overly rigid. A hard rejection without evaluating alternatives could damage stakeholder relationships or ignore viable solutions. Thus, Option C ensures due diligence, respects policy, and upholds the integrity of the project management process. Question number 137. You're managing a large-scale migration project involving multiple vendors. Midway, one vendor confidentially reveals that another vendor on the project is violating licensing terms and exposing the client to legal risk. However, the reporting vendor also admits they benefit if you remove the competitor. You verify the issue and confirm it is valid. But your procurement manager says this is outside your authority, and your sponsor asks to protect the client. There's no clause in the contract for immediate termination. What do you do next? This situation involves a serious legal and ethical risk, but also comes with contractual constraints and stakeholder conflicts. The most professional and PMI-aligned step is to formally document the violation, engage legal and procurement, and initiate a breach review according to the contract's terms. This ensures transparency, protects against retaliation or liability, and upholds organizational integrity. Option A is tempting but premature. Immediate removal without following procedure may expose you to legal and contractual pushback. Option C skips governance entirely, even if well-intentioned. It's risky and lacks stakeholder involvement. Option D gives the violating vendor undue opportunity to negotiate outside formal review, especially when the breach is already verified. By selecting B, you act decisively while respecting organizational controls, contract law, and ethical obligations. Question number 138. You are managing one of several interdependent projects within a broader transformation program. A key dependency on a shared data platform owned by another project is at risk due to unavailability of their team, which has been reassigned to higher priority work. Although their project timeline remains unchanged on paper, this shift threatens your schedule. The program manager is aware of the situation but has not communicated its downstream impact. Your sponsor is expecting full, on-time delivery and is unaware of this issue. A related cross-project risk was previously logged but not formally escalated. What should you do first? The best initial step is option C. Notify the program manager that the risk has now materialized and request immediate resolution and accountability reassignment. This action respects the governance hierarchy by recognizing that the interdependency spans multiple projects under the same program. Since the program manager is aware of the resource conflict but hasn't acted, it is now the responsibility of the affected project manager to formally escalate the materialized risk. Option A, while proactive, skips proper program-level escalation and may put your sponsor in a difficult position without first exhausting governance channels. Option B, coordinating directly with the other project manager, might seem practical but can undermine formal governance and won't solve structural resource conflicts. Option D, submitting a scope reduction change request, is premature. Thus, Option C ensures that you act responsibly within program governance. Focus on resolution rather than workaround, and protect both delivery and stakeholder alignment. Question number 139. You are managing a software development project for a multinational corporation. During project planning, you discover that the company's internal IT policies require software to be developed only using approved programming languages and tools. However, the project's innovation team recommends using a new, unapproved open-source framework that promises significant performance improvements. What is your best course of action regarding enterprise environmental factors? Option D reflects a thoughtful, PMI-aligned approach. It acknowledges the importance of EEFs, but also applies integrated risk management to assess the impact of a potential exception. This enables the project manager to make a data-driven case for innovation while respecting compliance and governance processes. A is incorrect because EEFs must be respected. Ignoring policies undermines governance. B is premature. Before requesting an exception, you should assess the risks and benefits. C is too rigid and blocks potential value without exploration. D is the most balanced and responsible action. Evaluate risks first, then seek informed approval. Question number 140. You are assigned as the project manager for a new product development initiative. The project sponsor wants to maximize flexibility to adapt to changing requirements and encourages frequent customer feedback throughout the project. However, your organization primarily follows a predictive life cycle and has rigid phase gates with formal approvals after each phase. What is the best approach to managing this project's life cycle? In this scenario, the sponsor values flexibility and continuous feedback, while the organization mandates a structured, predictive approach. Option B, adopting a hybrid life cycle, offers the best balance. It allows you to honor organizational standards through phase gates while embedding iterative practices to adapt to evolving needs. A is too rigid and may hurt innovation and responsiveness. C disregards organizational governance, which can lead to non-compliance. D improves communication but doesn't introduce true flexibility or iteration. Thus, B enables compliance and agility. Question number 141. Your project to develop a healthcare app is halfway complete when a sudden government directive mandates stricter patient data encryption standards. This change applies across the industry, but was not reflected in your original compliance requirements. The regulatory team insists that the project must comply immediately, but your technical team claims that full compliance will require reworking major components, risking a 6-week delay. What should you do first? The first step when a major external regulation change occurs is to understand its full impact, both technically and strategically. Option B is correct because it ensures the project manager assesses feasibility, risks, and timeline impacts before making major decisions or escalating. A is premature. You shouldn't halt development without knowing the full implications. C is risky. It ignores a regulatory requirement, potentially leading to compliance issues. D may be considered later, but only after a full analysis justifies the need for alternatives like phased compliance. Thus, B allows for a thoughtful, risk-informed next step. Question number 142. Midway through a cross-functional project, you've noticed a gradual drop in collaboration. The team is still delivering on time, but defects and deliverables have increased. No one is raising issues openly during meetings, and recently a team member with strong technical skills requested to be reassigned without providing much explanation. What should you do first to support team performance? The best first step is to create a safe environment where team members can openly discuss their concerns. Option D aligns with PMI's emphasis on servant leadership and team empowerment. A psychological safety-focused retrospective helps uncover root causes behind the rising defects, silent meetings, and withdrawal of a valuable team member. Option A treats the symptom but not the underlying issue of team dynamics. B escalates too early, without first engaging the team. C may help uncover one person's reason but won't address the broader team issue. Thus, D provides a collaborative and respectful approach to improve morale and performance. Question number 143. You're managing a high-visibility product development project with strict regulatory compliance requirements. A recent risk audit revealed that several team members are unaware of new quality standards introduced in a regulatory update. The sponsor expects full compliance, but there is limited budget and very little time. The team is already pressed with delivery commitments, and morale is sensitive due to recent overtime. What should you do first to ensure adequate training without affecting team performance? The most effective and balanced approach is option B, which leverages internal expertise without disrupting team momentum or morale. Having a subject matter expert provide targeted, just-in-time training within existing work processes ensures compliance is addressed promptly and practically. A risks worsening morale by scheduling training during off hours. C is costly and time-consuming, which may not align with the tight budget and schedule. D lacks engagement and doesn't ensure proper understanding of critical compliance requirements. Question number 144. You are managing a hybrid project where deliverables are divided between your internal engineering team and an external design agency. While finalizing the statement of work, the agency requests full creative autonomy and rejects a milestone-based payment schedule, claiming that such constraints hinder innovation. However, your organization mandates milestone-linked payments aligned with quality checkpoints. The agency possesses rare expertise, and project timelines are already delayed. Internal stakeholders are divided. Some prioritize innovation, while others are concerned about the lack of oversight. What is the most appropriate action to balance contractual requirements, innovation, and stakeholder assurance? Option B is the most balanced response. It retains organizational compliance by keeping milestone-based reviews while supporting innovation through iterative flexibility in deliverables. Option A delays validation until the end, increasing risk and stakeholder anxiety. Option C is too rigid, possibly jeopardizing the partnership with a niche vendor. Option D introduces unnecessary contract complexity and could confuse accountability and quality control. Thus, B best reconciles compliance, creative freedom, and stakeholder confidence. Question number 145. A senior developer frequently challenges your authority during team meetings, often dismissing your suggestions in front of others. Several team members have started remaining silent during discussions. You want to restore team collaboration without escalating. What should you do first? The best first step is option A, holding a one-on-one meeting with the senior developer. This allows the project manager to privately understand the root cause of the disruptive behavior and set clear expectations without embarrassing the developer in front of the team. It supports conflict resolution through direct communication, a core leadership competency. Option B may backfire by escalating tension publicly. Option C is helpful long-term, but premature if the core issue with the developer remains unresolved. Option D is too aggressive as a first step and should only be pursued if the behavior continues after direct intervention. Thus, A preserves team dynamics and promotes respectful collaboration. Question number 146. You're managing a project using a hybrid approach. Midway through execution, you discover that several activities on a secondary path, non-critical, now have zero float, and the project end date is at risk. No changes have been made to resource allocations or task durations. What is the most plausible cause? In a hybrid project, resource leveling is often used to address overallocations by adjusting task start and finish dates based on resource availability. Even if durations and allocations haven't been manually changed, resource leveling can shift tasks forward on the schedule to avoid overloading individuals or teams. This can reduce or eliminate float on non-critical paths, turning them into critical or near-critical paths, even without changing task scope or estimates. That's why secondary path activities that once had float may now show zero float, putting the project end date at risk. Option B, critical path misidentified, would show risk earlier, not suddenly. Option C, lead time, typically shortens timelines and would increase float. Option D, fast tracking, compresses the schedule and typically adds risk, but doesn't apply here since float was reduced without task acceleration. Thus, option A is the most likely explanation. Question number 147. During an integrated planning session, the cost management plan is nearly finalized, but the resource management plan is still under review. The sponsor is pressing to lock down the budget. What is the most appropriate response? In integrated planning, you can't baseline cost without confirming the resource plan, since resource types, quantities, and availability directly influence overall project cost. Even if the cost plan is nearly complete, moving forward without a finalized resource plan introduces major risks and violates the principle of integrated baseline development. Therefore, option B is the most appropriate response. Escalating to the sponsor is not confrontational here. It's a professional action to maintain control and transparency. Question number 148. During a retrospective, a high-performing team member criticizes another team member's repeated delays. The targeted individual becomes defensive, and the conversation derails into personal remarks. As the project manager, what should you do first? In an agile retrospective, maintaining a safe and respectful environment is essential. When conflict arises, the project manager or scrum master must act quickly but constructively. Option B demonstrates emotional intelligence and servant leadership by recognizing the conflict, reinforcing behavioral norms, ground rules, and steering the conversation back to team goals. This helps preserve psychological safety and team cohesion without shaming individuals or shutting down communication. Option A is reactive and may suppress the issue rather than resolve it. C delays team-level resolution and unfairly singles out one person. And D risks escalation by letting the situation continue. Question number 149. You are managing a multi-year cross-border infrastructure project. A steering committee member asks you to accelerate a milestone by bypassing the planned stage gate review, citing regional political urgency. The governance charter clearly states that all milestone changes require full board consensus. What should you do? In PMI's framework, governance structures exist to ensure accountability, transparency, and proper decision-making in large, complex projects. The steering committee members' request to bypass the agreed-upon stage gate process, even for political urgency, directly violates the governance charter that mandates full board consensus for milestone changes. Option C is correct because it respects the established rules, maintains process integrity, and follows escalation protocols appropriately. Option A suggests a comply now, justify later approach, which undermines governance. Option B falsely assumes that one member's written approval can override board-level consensus, which PMI does not support. Option D introduces unnecessary risk by attempting to revise governance reactively under pressure. Question number 150. During a project retrospective, recurring delays in code integration were identified. The team agrees to implement a new DevOps pipeline. As the project manager, what is the best next step? After identifying a recurring issue during a retrospective, and with team agreement to implement a new DevOps pipeline, the most aligned step, especially in Agile or hybrid environments, is to incorporate the improvement immediately into the workflow and observe its impact. Option A is premature. OPAs are updated after successful application and validation, not before implementation. Option B appears process-oriented, but too premature. You don't revise the entire plan before testing if it's an internal team improvement. Option D reflects over-formalization. Not all internal improvements require formal change control, especially team-level process tweaks. Thus, Option C best aligns with Agile principles and PMI's guidance on adaptive project environments.